Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's time to place your bets. It is me, Joe Pisapia, and it's the 150th running of the Kentucky Derby this Saturday. Get excited, everybody. It's everybody's favorite time of year. The NFL draft is behind us, and now it's time to look ahead to something fun here. And I have two of the absolute best folks to chat about it with. Returning from last year, but now working at a different place here, VSiN's own Mike Somich is going to join us here. He's the host of The Handle. He also does a ton of work in the horse racing world. If you haven't already seen it, you need to go check him out there on the Twitterverse or X, whatever the heck we're calling it today. It's SomoBomb18. You can also check out Racing Dudes, where he does a lot of work too. But so happy to have Mike back. And one of my good old friends from Sports Grid, who's now at FanDuel TV. Look at this handsome devil all the way on the West Coast. Everybody's over there. I'm freezing my butt off here in Jersey. And there's my boy. Dubs is here. Dubsy Anderson obviously is back again. And he is going to walk us through some of his favorite picks here for the Kentucky Derby. Dubs, it's great to see you. How's the golf game going, my friend? Because I know that's the true passion for you.
Yeah, mate, look, I've spent the last 6 months trying to get the handicap to skyrocket. Had a member guest 2 weeks back. We did pretty good. Made it into the horse race, funny enough. But golf game's been good. Punting's been decent to good. And now we got the Kentucky Derby. I mean, I love the golf, love all sports, but this is going to be right at the top of the list.
Now, Mike, I don't know if you have time for golf or anything else with your schedule nowadays. Do you get out there on the links ever? What are you doing?
I golf every Monday. It's one of those things that I absolutely love doing. I love just going out as a solo and being able to play as fast as possible, sometimes play 2 balls on a hole. I used to be good. I'm not good anymore. Back to the double-digit handicap life for me.
Yeah, I had 2 kids, and I stopped playing, and I haven't played in like 10 years. And now I'm getting to the point where they're teenagers, and now they want to hang out less with me. So now I'm thinking maybe it's that time to pick up that again. But we're going to pick up Kentucky Derby. So we're going to go through the favorites today and what we're looking at here. Also, some of the favorite long shots, and then the best bets between the guys, because there's different ways to approach this here to make money. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure you download the BettingPros app. Utilize the tools here at BettingPros, the best tools on the planet. You want to find the best line, the best house for whatever it is you're wagering in sports. BettingPros is the place to do it. So go to bettingpros.com or just download the app. It's very easy, and sync your sports books for free today. Mike, let's start with you here. Obviously, we've got the favorites. They're pretty clear from what we have on the board for the 150th Kentucky Derby. Fierceness is at 5-2, then Sierra Leone at 3-1, and Catching Freedom at 8-1. Again, those are the best odds right now of the horses on the board. What do you take out of the favorites this year?
I really like one of them. I really like Fierceness in this spot. We've seen him run 3 very good races and 2 not so good races. If you go watch the 2 races he did not run well in, he got in some traffic trouble, got banged around early, took some kickback, didn't like it. He drew the 17 post. He's going to move inside to the 16 with the scratch of Encino. I actually think it's a great draw for Fierceness because he's going to be able to sit 2-3 wide on the first turn, 2-3 wide on the second turn, be in the clear, and be able to make one big run. And when you look at him from a numbers perspective, he kind of towers over this field. Anyone else in this field is going to need to improve close to 10% from their best number to be able to beat him. And that's if you look at Bayer, that's if you look at time form. So really, any way you cut it, he seems to be the class of the field. And I'm not someone who likes to pick the favorite in the Derby, but at this point, I think it's hard to get around Fierceness, especially when you look at Sierra Leone, who's the second competitor here. He just draws terrible in that 2 post. I comp him to Tappet Trice last year, who drew the 5. He was last, first under the wire. I expect Sierra Leone going to be last, first under the wire this year. And that makes it really, really hard to weave through 19 other horses when you're going to be stuck inside early in this race, especially when you're a big horse who is not all that athletic. He needs to get his stride going and just continue it. And so he cannot get stopped at any point in this race. And that's going to be a real challenge for Sierra Leone.
Now, Mike, liking the favorite as much as you do you think that Fierceness has any legs for a Triple Crown run this year?
He's the only one I would even consider to be able to win the Triple Crown. The problem for him, and I think he actually caught a good year, to be honest with you. You've got Muth and a couple others waiting for you in the Preakness, but he has already beaten Muth, did that in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And then the Belmont's not a mile and a half this year. We're going to Saratoga. It's going to be a shorter distance. I think that kind of plays into Fierce's hands as well. A couple places right now, I know it's Circa in Vegas. You can get 10-1 to win the Triple Crown. That should probably look more like 35-1, so not something I would bet, but he is the one horse from this field that I think could do it.
All right, Dubs, let's get your look here at the favorites. Fierceness at 5-2 against Sierra Leone at 3-1 and Catching Freedom at 8-1. And as Mike mentioned before, we also had Encino out. Epic Ride is now into the field as well, but again, a lower odds there. So what do you make of these favorites? Are you where Mike is, Dubs, where you think that Fierceness is the favorite for a reason, but still a good wager on the board?
Yeah, absolutely. Class of this field. I wasn't opposed to the setup that we got from that 17 spot, but you'll hear the storyline all week. 0 for 44 from starting position 17. Now moves across to the 16 hole. And for me, I'm not going to share it right now, but my top endorsement is a bit of a price play. And now they're going to be starting from that 17 position. So that works against me. But in terms of fierceness, look, I think Mike makes a great argument. The only sort of hesitation knock, I would say, is to be looking at that form cycle. It's been monster performance, bounce, monster performance, bounce. It was an absolute monster in that Florida Derby. I think you could argue that comes into this one well rested, has some really strong connections in Todd Pletcher, Johnny V. And I feel like the storyline last year was all about Forte being unbackable as a short price favorite, a game time scratch for Rapoli and his team, which was major news. You know, the day of the Kentucky Derby, the big favorite is ruled out. Well, they've got a very good chance to run it back this year with Fierceness, who certainly is the class of this field. At 3-1, probably a decent number there come kickoff as well. But for me, I'm looking towards another Brad Cox runner. He did have the 3 entries pointed towards the big race there on Saturday afternoon. You highlighted Encino scratches from this one. I think Catching Freedom, the 4, listed there 8-1 on the morning line, gets Flavion Pratt in the irons, who has had a win at the Kentucky Derby, but I feel like there's a bit of an asterisk next to that one. And as you mentioned, Mike, so many horses in this field. They're younger runners. Some of them haven't fully developed. You need a bit of a run in your favor, and that sustained run style, that closing kick for Catching Freedom, that's the standout for me. So keep an eye on the 4. Flavion Pratt, one of the best hoops in the game right now, and you may be able to get a bit of a price for one of the top 3 favorites coming in for this field. So I think Catching Freedom makes a bit of sense.
All right, so making money is fun. Long shots, obviously a little bit more fun potentially because of a bigger payoff. We want to be right, so I'm very happy that the guys do kind of agree here on the favorite as being investable. But let's get a little bit deeper here and look at some of the long shots. So when you're looking at the board right now, obviously I mentioned before, you had Catching Freedom at 8-1, Forever Young at 10-1, Just a Touch at 10-1, and then a bunch of horses that are 20-1. Much bigger long shots here, as you mentioned, the younger field. So Mike, when you look at the long shots here, the horses that are not at the very tippy top, do you think that there's anybody who might be able to place or maybe even shock us?
I do think there are a couple long shots that are definitely playable on the board right now. The other Brad Cox here, Just a Touch, coming out of the Bluegrass last time, I think makes a ton of sense. He's 10-1 on the morning line right now, breaking from the 8 post, which has been a post that's done very well in the past Kentucky Derbies. And this horse comps a lot to Mage to me, last year's Kentucky Derby winner. It's going to be his 4th start. He ran very well in that Bluegrass and did a lot of the dirty work, set the early fractions, was close to a fast pace, and got beat by Sierra Leone, but was still trying to run at Sierra Leone toward the end of that race. So at 10-1, I think he makes a lot of sense being able to hit the board here. The other one's right to his inside, Anna Marie, which is a horse that I have loved through this entire Triple Crown process, a horse that is bred to go 1.25 miles, absolutely wants every bit of this distance. And if you go back and just isolate watching Anna Marie in his previous 2 races, you can see the mental aspect of this horse growing every single start. If you go back in the Risen Star, he was just goofy, didn't want to run for half of the race, then decided to kick it in gear a little bit around the turn. You go to the Louisiana Derby, I thought a much more professional performance, clearly starting to figure things out. And then this last workout goes 47 seconds over 4 furlongs. The horse all of a sudden is showing a little bit of early speed. If Anna Marie can inject some early speed into his game and not be all the way in the back and then still have that closing kick, I think 1.25 miles hits him right between the eyes, and 20-1 is a very nice price.
It certainly is. That would be very nice. So 20-1 could pay out potentially for Honor Marie. Dubsy, when you look at the board here and you're looking at the Kentucky Derby long shots, who stands out to you as potentially investable?
Yeah, look, I'm out here on the West Coast, so maybe a bit of bias towards Phil Diamato, Antonio Fraser, the number 18 Stronghold. Now, I feel like Stronghold's going to sneak under the radar, but had a pretty big win in the Santa Anita Derby, has looked better, has looked to appreciate the further we get in distance. The speed figures still look very progressive. And for me, I'm sort of banking on that we haven't seen the best yet for Stronghold. In terms of the draw, it's not ideal. We'll now start from starting position 17, highlighted the history against there if you're into trends like that, but I'm not going to buy into that. So for Stronghold, what needs to go in favor? Obviously going to need a bit of a pace setup, probably a hot tempo early in this one to come charging for home once they hit the final furlong. But Antonio Fraser, Frankie Dettori is going to be in the field. Flavion Pratt, we highlighted some of the star jockeys. Antonio Fraser, for a lot of bettors and punters that are looking to play the game on the weekly, especially out here on the West Coast. Antonio Fraser is a name, I'd say a younger name since coming across to the US the last 12 months, has been riding at a very strong clip. Phil D'Amato, he knows how to get him primed up for a big performance like this one. And for me, a bit of I guess, angle I like to throw in here, especially around this time of year, is to see that what horses in this field have done well at Churchill Downs. You want them to just be a little bit more comfortable in this surroundings. And for Stronghold, this is where we broke the maiden. Underneath the Twin Spires, there's going to be in excess of 100,000 mad race goers, a lot of noise, a lot of horses. So there's just one small percentile that I can sort of use in favor towards Stronghold to make a bit of a case. 3 winner, that's where I'm going to go. And I do think we may even get north of 20-1, which is listed on the morning line number.
All right, gentlemen, it's time to look at the best bets for the Kentucky Derby. And obviously, we talked about the favorite being in the mix, but when you're starting to fill out your cards here and trying to make the most money you possibly can and maximize your efforts, Mike, I want to start with you. What are your 3 best bets for this Saturday's Kentucky Derby?
Well, for me, I think it's important that if you like a horse, you bet the horse to win. I had Mage last year on the top. I didn't hit the exacta, but the 15-1 price made it worthwhile for me. The price not nearly as good this year, but I do think there's a lot of value inside Fierceness. If you're able to get 3-1, 5-2 on race day, I think that could end up looking like a steal. I know, Joe, you were mentioned Justify. He went off at 5-2, 3-1. Like that, those type of horses are value sometimes in the Kentucky Derby, especially if you're against the second place horse. And I am 100% against Sierra Leone, who's 3-1 on the morning line. I feel like it almost is a takeout enhancer in a lot of ways. So I'm happy to take 5-2 on Fierceness if that's the price we're able to get when we load into the gate. From a couple other bets that I like here, I'm going to really rely on Fierceness in this spot and try and juice up the payouts further down the line. If I am going to have that win ticket, I want to make sure that I can make some money in the exotic. So I'm going to go to exacta. And I'm going to put Fierceness right back on top, put him in that first slot. And I'm going to look at 3 horses underneath that we've actually already talked about. So I'll take the 4, Catching Freedom, who Dubsy mentioned. I would have this horse higher. I actually have a future ticket at 25-1 to win the Derby on Catching Freedom. If he had drawn outside, I would have this a lot better chance of Catching Freedom being able to win this race. I comp him to Angel of Empire last year. That was Brad Cox, Flavian Pratt, and it was a closer, a very similar style horse. That horse drew outside. Just lost to Mage and running to a gap. If he had won that, he might have won the race. I think Catching Freedom has a chance to hit the board. Not sure he can win it. And then we're going to go to Anna Marie, the 7 horse, and the 8 horse, just a touch underneath that exacta. So 17 with 4, 7, 8. And then the holy grail of Kentucky Derby betting. You got to play a superfecta. These things average $10,000 per year, paying out over the last 10 years. So we're going to take a shot there. We're going to copy that exacta ticket. So we're going to play Fierceness on top, with the 4, 7, and 8 in the second spot. And then we're going to add some prices into that third spot. The 5 horse one that we have not talked about yet in this race here, Catalytic ran second in the Florida Derby. That was the first time Catalytic had gone 2 turns. He was 3 wide on the first turn, 4 wide on the second turn, still able to beat the rest of that field. 30-1, a monster number. I think he can run up into that try or the super as well. And just to his outside, Just Steel, who is 20-1, is a horse that's just a very Johnny Triard horse. Shows up every time with a solid effort. Coming out of the Arkansas Derby, ran second in that spot. So we're going to put those 5 horses in that 4th spot, and then the third spot, and then the 4th spot, we're going to add the 21 who draws in here, Epic Ride. So that superfecta ticket will be 17 with 4, 7, 8, with 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, with 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 21. Hopefully we can catch a big one.
There you go. Look at that. He has got it all on lock. Mike is the best in the business for a reason. Dubsy, there's a lot of numbers there, and obviously we got to take a breath there and kind of take them all in. But again, for you, when you're looking at this, I love when we have different points of view and different voices here when it comes to these horses, especially in the Derby, because everybody loves to bet the Kentucky Derby, but a lot of people just don't understand. And I love how Mike breaks it down. So let's break it down again from your point of view when you're looking at this race here, how we can make some money on it besides just betting the favorite, which I know all 3 of us like today.
Yeah, and look, listen to Mike rip in there. I mean, I feel like I want to run through a brick wall. What do we got? 4 days until we get to the Kentucky Derby. And for the average sports better thinking, why should I play the Derby? Some of the prize pools that we're going to see are ginormous. 2 years ago, the superfecta, which Summer Bombs has highlighted, over $320,000 in return. I hit the one on the Oaks last year, 16 grand off $100 spent. So this is why you're going to be playing on Saturday afternoon. I think Mike makes a really good case. Fierceness is the horse to beat, the absolute class of this field for a couple of massive connections. Johnny V and Todd Pletcher, an absolute must-use. I've got 3 selections here. You can use them as single win tickets, build around in terms of creating a little superfecta, trifecta, but I would include Fierceness absolutely with these. I like Catching Freedom. The shortest price there for me, Flavion Pratt riding for Brad Cox. Monster performance in the Louisiana Derby. If we take a slight step forward and we get a nice little pace set up, does have that closing kick, Catching Freedom should be a part of the conversation. We've got 2 Japanese runners. The Japanese runners really haven't fared well coming across into the Kentucky Derby. Forever Young is an absolute monster. In terms of the speed fix, that's the question mark for me, but a perfect 5-for-5 race resume. Comes in for a really well-known trainer, Yoshida Yahagi, who's very bullish in terms of trying to win the US races. If it's at the Breeders' Cup where he's had success, now the Kentucky Derby. I caught up with him back in Australia. He's got all the big threats. He just wants to, I guess, have his presence felt on the biggest of stages. I think this could be the year for a horse like Forever Young with the right setup to be a part of the conversation and could still be sneaking there at a bit of a price. And my massive price play will be my top endorsement is Stronghold, the number 18, trained by Phil D'Amato, Antonio Fraser in the irons. Highlighted that versatility. These are younger runners. We still need to see a bit of development from Stronghold, but if we get it, I really do think having that experience, 6 starts, 6 different courses, knows where the wire is, should appreciate the further distance, and we get back to familiar surroundings. This is where we broke the maiden, and I like what I'm seeing from Antonio Fraser. I was texting him a couple of days ago. He loves his chances. He's got a lot of confidence in this horse and in the way that Phil D'Amato is priming him up for the big race on Saturday afternoon. So the shortest price for me, Catching Freedom, the 4, 8-1 on the morning line. Forever Young, looking to become the first Japanese raider to win the Kentucky Derby for a very, very accomplished trainer in Yoshida Yahagi, and Stronghold to surprise and shock a lot of people. The number 18, who's listed at plus 2,000 at 20-1 on the morning line.
Pretty good stuff. No excuses, anybody, for not making money on the Kentucky Derby now. I mean, these 2 guys just broke it all down for you. And remember, make sure you're placing your bets using that BettingPros app. Sync your sports books for free today. Subscribe to the BettingPros channel. And gentlemen, here's the big question. I have never been to a Kentucky Derby live. If I do hit, I think that I might just have to attend one of these years. Now, I don't have a fabulous head of hair like you two. So the question is, what hat do I wear to the Derby when I make all this money next year?
I think you look phenomenal in the bowler hat there, Joe. I go with the bowler hat.
There you go. The bowler, fedora, Dubsy, I automatically just look very, very 1920s gangster. This Italian face in a fedora sometimes puts people off, but maybe that's the right vibe for the Derby. I don't know. Or should I go with something a little bit more festive, Dubs?
Mate, you're not taking the hat. You're known as the Jason Statham of sports betting. You're going to rock the dome. Don't take your sunglasses. I always lose my good sunglasses at the track after a couple of sodas. So if you get the win, you're taking the 3 of us. We'll play a bit of golf beforehand, and then we'll roll up underneath the Twin Spice from Monster Day. It's going to be fantastic.
Called me the Jason Statham, folks. That's why Dubsy's always my favorite. Gentlemen, it's great. Make sure you watch Dubs Anderson over on FanDuel TV and check out Mike Somich over on VSiN. 2 of the best in the business, covering all sorts of sports, everything. But it's hard to find people as good at horse racing as these 2 guys. So it was great to get not one, but both of them on the show today. Hopefully, we'll get you for more horse racing stuff throughout the year and next year's Derby as well. So everybody go out there, enjoy the Kentucky Derby 150. Very special celebration, I'm sure. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Mike and Dubs, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.